The pancakes were still warm when he left. That's what I keep thinking about. There were 3 on the plate, banana cinnamon, the kind she always said gave her Sunday feelings. One had a bite in it. A small one. Like he wasn't hungry. Or maybe he panicked. His fork was still there, flipped over like it had fallen mid-meal. And her phone, her stupid phone, was sitting face down next to the butter knife. That's how I knew something was wrong. She never leaves her phone unattended, let alone face down. I didn't make a sound. I just stood in the doorway, looking at the half-eaten breakfast and 2 glasses of fresh squeezed orange juice. She doesn't even drink orange juice. Said it makes her tongue itchy. That was always my drink. So who was this for? Why was he here at 9:12 a.m. on a Thursday? And why did she say, just 2 weeks ago, I need space. Let's try only one night a month. I think that'll help us grow separately and maybe together again someday. I didn't grow. I disappeared. I didn't even get angry right away. I just took a picture of the table. I don't know why. Maybe because I knew, in that moment, she'd never admit it. She was upstairs. I could hear her laughing. Laughing, like the kind of laugh you give someone who makes you feel seen. She never laughed like that for me anymore. I should have walked in. Should have kicked down the bedroom door and demanded an explanation, maybe even punched a wall to prove I still had testosterone. But instead, I picked up her phone. The lock screen lit up before it locked. A text preview. Next time, don't leave your socks on the stairs. Gordo could have seen them LOL. That's when it hit me. They were laughing at me. Together. Like I was a shared joke. I put the phone down. Quietly. No drama. I left. Went back to my motel, the same grim little place I'd been staying at since she gave me the 1 night a month speech. A place with flickering lights and a vending machine that eats your change. I sat on the bed, staring at the photo of those pancakes. That's when something in me snapped. Not loud, not dramatic, just this click, like a deadbolt turning in reverse. She said I could come home 1 night a month. Fine. From now on, I would. Only once. Exactly once. But each visit would leave a mark. I didn't sleep that night. I lay on the motel bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the guy in the next room argue with his girlfriend over speakerphone for 3 straight hours. The walls were thin, but my skin felt thinner. Every little sound felt like a personal insult. Every word I didn't say to Tessa back at the house echoed in my head louder than anything. I kept picturing that table, the untouched pancakes, the 2 glasses, the abandoned fork. The worst part? She had used our plates. The ones from our wedding registry. I'd worked 2 doubles to afford that set, back when we were still dumb enough to believe a home was something you built with love and not deception. I could have sent her a message. I could have told her I knew. Could have confronted her, demanded answers, tears, maybe even an apology. But deep down, I realized something. I wasn't angry enough yet. I was still hurt. And you can't fight when you're bleeding. You just make more of a mess. So I waited. The next time I was allowed home, the monthly night she scheduled for me like I was some subscription box delivery, I showed up right on time. 6 p.m. Same as always. I rang the bell, even though I had a key. She opened the door in leggings and a hoodie. No makeup, hair in a messy bun. Not glamorous. Not flirty. But comfortable. Too comfortable. Like a roommate expecting nothing from me. Did you bring your toothbrush? She asked. Her tone was weird. Like she was annoyed that I might stay the night, even though that's what the agreement was. I lied and said no. She smiled. Well, we'll keep it short tonight then. Short. Like I was an errand she had to run before meeting someone who actually mattered. I walked inside. The place smelled like vanilla candles and sage. She always did that after she'd had someone over. Tried to scrub the air like it could erase what she'd done in it. I didn't bring flowers this time. Didn't bring food. Didn't even bring a bag. I just sat on the couch and said, "How have you been?" She said, "Busy." Then picked up her phone and started scrolling like that one word explained everything. 10 minutes went by before she even looked at me again. So I stood up, walked into the kitchen, grabbed a pen and a piece of paper from the drawer, and wrote a note. Just 1 line. No emotion. No signature. Then I folded it twice, stuck it inside the sleeve of her favorite mug, and left. I didn't say goodbye. She didn't call after me. She found it the next morning. I know because at 7:12 a.m. I got a text. Seriously? What the hell is this supposed to mean? The note had said, if I only get 1 night, you only get 1 truth. Next time, bring your own orange juice. She never responded after that. But I knew I had her attention now. The silence did something to her. I know it did, because Tessa never could stand not being in control of a narrative. When she sent that "what the hell is this supposed to mean" text, I didn't reply. And that ate at her more than any insult or accusation ever could. She expected me to grovel, to lash out, to make a scene, not to disappear quietly and leave her sitting with that one bitter line and the weight of her own choices. The following days were quiet, but not in a peaceful way. More like the eerie quiet before a tornado touches down. I didn't block her, but I didn't reply either. I left her on read, just like she'd left our marriage on read. For the first time, she didn't know what I was thinking, and the not knowing, that terrified her. On the 18th, she sent a photo of the cat, Mittens, our rescue, curled up in the window with the caption, "She misses you." The next day, a voice memo, just background noise. A street musician playing our old song outside some cafe. No words, just the sound. Trying to stir something in me, maybe. But all I felt was pity. The strange thing is, once I stopped chasing her, I started noticing how invisible I'd become over the years. I remembered all the times she'd talked over me at dinner parties. All the little decisions she made without me. Switching our insurance, moving the coffee table, inviting people over on weekends she knew I worked. It was death by 1,000 dismissals. I had disappeared long before she asked me to leave. I just hadn't realized it. Then the 30th rolled around, visit night. This time, I didn't ring the bell. I used my key. She was in the kitchen when I walked in, pouring herself a glass of red wine. She didn't jump or flinch, but I could tell I caught her off guard. She wore a tight dress. Not for me, clearly. But it was too early in the evening to be dressed up for bed. Someone else was supposed to be here. Or had just left. "Hey," she said flatly. "Didn't hear your car." "Wasn't trying to be heard," I replied. She set the wine glass down carefully and leaned on the counter like we were about to have a civil conversation. "Look, Gordon, I know this arrangement is weird, but I'm trying to make it work. For both of us." I looked around the kitchen, everything spotless. Too spotless. Like someone had done a panic clean. No clutter, no dishes. Just a candle burning. Same scent as last time. I opened the trash can without asking. Empty. Not even a tissue. She was covering her tracks better now. "I didn't come here to fight," I said. "I just came for my night." She crossed her arms. "Then let's make it count." We sat on the couch and watched some murder mystery she had queued up. Her phone buzzed 3 times. She silenced it. Never flipped it over. Just muted it. Like that alone would make the world go quiet. Halfway through the movie, she reached for my hand. Just gently. Just enough to pretend things were okay. I let her do it. But before she could say something sentimental or loaded, I turned to her and said calmly, "Your necklace is on backwards." She blinked. I stood up, walked to the coat closet, and pulled it open. Her scarf was there. The maroon one I bought her last Christmas. Wrapped around a jacket I didn't recognize. A men's jacket. I reached into the pocket and pulled out a receipt. It was from a hotel downtown. Yesterday's date. Room 613. She froze when I turned around. I held up the receipt and smiled. "Should I leave this here, or does it get filed with the rest of our tax documents?" She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Just this quiet little breath, like a dying balloon. "I'll see you next month," I said, folding the receipt and slipping it into my wallet. I didn't slam the door when I left. I didn't need to. The silence did it for me. A sane man would have confronted her. Would have demanded answers, yelled, thrown things, called lawyers. That's what the world expects from betrayal. Noise, volume, threats, screaming matches in the driveway. But the thing is, I wasn't angry in the way people imagine. I wasn't boiling over or out of control. I was just steady, ice calm, like someone walking underwater, too far down to bother swimming back up. The morning after I left her with that hotel receipt and nothing else, I booked the exact same room she'd stayed in with him. Room 613 at the Plaza Meridian. Not for revenge. Not for confrontation. I just wanted to see it. I needed to understand what kind of place she escaped to when she said she needed space. The room was clean, neutral. Beige walls, a slightly crooked painting of a lake, fresh linen smell, and a single long brown hair on the pillow. Hers, probably. Or maybe the next one's. I didn't sleep that night either. Just sat in the chair by the window, watching traffic until sunrise. I imagined her in that bed, with him, laughing, whispering, doing everything she rationed from me for the past 2 years like I was on some intimacy budget she couldn't afford. And yet the hotel room wasn't the worst part. No, the worst part came a week later when she emailed me. Yes, emailed. Not called. Not texted. She sent an actual email like we were co-workers. Subject line, next month's visit? It read, "Hey Gordo, just checking in. Are you planning to come by the 17th or 18th next month? Trying to plan ahead. Let me know. Hope you're well." Smiley face. She ended it with a smiley face. That nearly made me laugh out loud. Imagine cheating on your husband, gaslighting him for months, and then sending calendar invites like it's brunch with your aunt. I didn't reply. Instead, I did something I hadn't done since we got married. I logged into our shared Amazon account. She had forgotten I still had access. And in that moment, the floodgates opened. 2 weeks prior, men's beard grooming kit. She never ordered that for me. Last month, a book titled Attachment Theory and Avoidant Love Styles. 2 days ago, a set of silk boxers. Size, large. I scrolled further. Candles. More wine. A Polaroid camera. Lingerie. Yoga blocks. Hotel shampoo packs. It was like watching someone curate a life for another man. A life she used to pretend was too exhausting to maintain for me. But one item stood out above the rest. It was a book, not unusual in itself, but the title? Intentional Living. Designing the Relationships You Want. That broke me in a way I can't explain. Not because she was reading it, but because she hadn't read a damn book in the last 3 years of our marriage. I used to beg her to read with me. Just one chapter a week. Something we could talk about that wasn't bills or her work drama. She always said she didn't have the time or energy. But now she had time to design relationships. I scheduled my next visit for the 18th. No response to her email. No confirmation. I wanted to see what she'd do with uncertainty. When I arrived, she was already dressed like she was going to a wine tasting. Hair done, makeup perfect, candles lit. Too ready, too rehearsed. It was like walking onto a stage, not into a home. She smiled too wide. "Hey, you came after all." I said nothing and handed her a box. She blinked. "What's this?" "Something for your new lifestyle," I said. Inside was the same book, Intentional Living. But this one was burned around the edges, soaked in coffee, pages warped and unreadable. She stared at it, then at me. "You think this is funny?" she asked quietly. "No," I said. "I think it's accurate." Then I walked to the fridge, opened it, and slowly placed a fresh toothbrush inside. She didn't ask why, but I could see it in her face. The fear that I'd become something she couldn't predict anymore. And she was right. By the time the 5th visit came around, the weather had changed. Cold wind, bare trees, dead leaves swirling in the gutters like forgotten promises. Tessa opened the door wearing a chunky sweater and fake warmth, the kind that didn't touch her eyes. She gestured inside with that same awkward half-smile, the kind you give a neighbor you don't really like, but have to pretend for. The house smelled like cinnamon and something faintly metallic. I stepped in without saying anything, walked past her into the living room, and noticed something strange. The bookshelf had changed. Not in a big way. A few new hardcovers, a little ceramic sculpture I hadn't seen before, a plant I knew she couldn't keep alive for more than a week. But it wasn't the items. It was the rearrangement. Every photo of us had been pushed to the bottom shelf, tucked behind a stack of books with titles like Emotional Freedom and Boundaries in Practice. I stood there and stared at one of the photos, our wedding day, her smile genuine and wide. My hand was on her lower back. She used to lean into me without thinking. Now she flinched if I touched her shoulder. "You okay?" she asked, walking past me toward the kitchen. "You look quiet." I didn't respond. Instead, I walked toward the hallway, toward the little office she never used except to hide packages or stash unopened mail. The door was unlocked. She called after me. "Gordo, what are you? Can we just sit down for once?" I ignored her and stepped inside. That room had always been neutral territory, dusty shelves, a dead printer, an old desk we bought at IKEA with 2 missing screws. I didn't expect to find anything. I wasn't even sure why I walked in. Maybe part of me just wanted to take inventory of how much of me was left in this house. And then I noticed the drawer. The top drawer on the right side of the desk was slightly open, maybe a half-inch. Like someone had closed it in a hurry and didn't check twice. I pulled it open, slowly, gently. Inside was a mess of receipts, old mail, a cracked phone case, and beneath that, a small bundle of printed photographs, wrapped with a red ribbon. It wasn't my ribbon, and it definitely wasn't mine to find. I untied it. There were maybe a dozen pictures. Most were just her, blurry selfies or shots from odd angles. Then came the ones that made my stomach twist, mirror shots in outfits I'd never seen, poses she never did for me. One photo of her bare legs on a hotel bed with a man's hand barely in frame. Same watch, same skin tone, same tattoo on the wrist. It was him. I wasn't angry. I wasn't shocked. I just felt hollow, like something had been scooped out of me and I'd been walking around filled with air this whole time, pretending it was weight. I put the photos back exactly the way I found them. I closed the drawer. When I walked back into the living room, she was sitting on the couch, hugging a pillow, eyes darting toward me. She knew. Maybe not exactly what I saw, but something had shifted in the air between us, and she felt it. "You don't say much these days," she muttered. "You don't leave much room," I said, sitting across from her. We watched TV in silence. I didn't even register what was on. Some cooking show, maybe. She kept glancing at me like I might explode, but I didn't. I just sat there, calm, casual, letting the minutes stretch and crawl and haunt her. Right before I left, she tried to hug me. For the first time in months. I didn't move. I leaned in close and whispered, "You forgot to lock the drawer." She froze, arms still slightly open, mouth half open like a child caught stealing. I didn't wait for a reply. I walked out. This time, I slammed the door. Not because I was angry, but because I finally wanted her to feel something she couldn't pretend wasn't there. I waited 30 days, like always. The rule was hers. One night a month. She probably never imagined I'd stick to it with such precision. That was her mistake. She thought I was weak, passive, predictable. But what she didn't understand was that sometimes a man doesn't need to raise his voice to set fire to the whole house. He just needs to move the matchbox closer and closer every time until the spark becomes inevitable. I didn't text her before my 6th visit. Didn't respond to the 2 just checking in messages or the calendar invite she sent, which she now started calling Gordo night, like I was a freaking maintenance task she had to tick off. When I showed up, she opened the door slower than usual. Her makeup was half done. She was wearing slippers. Not expecting me that day, or maybe not expecting me at all. "You're early," she said cautiously. I looked at my watch. 6 o'clock, just like always. She stepped aside to let me in, and I noticed her looking over her shoulder like she was checking if something, or someone, was still visible. It wasn't paranoia anymore. It was instinct. She was hiding things poorly now, and she knew it. The night passed quietly. I made no accusations, asked no questions. We didn't even argue. That's what scared her the most. The absence of confrontation. She was waiting for a fight, and got a funeral instead. What she didn't know, what she couldn't know, is that I had already been inside the house 3 other times that month. I still had a key. She never changed the locks. I visited when I knew she was out. Thanks to the calendar app she forgot I could still access, still sync to her old iPad in storage. Yoga at 6. Happy hour with Jay. Therapy sessions on Thursdays. She scheduled her betrayal like she was booking spa days. And each time I entered the house, I made one change. Nothing dramatic. Nothing she'd notice right away. In the kitchen, I moved her favorite mug to the second shelf. In the bedroom, I shifted her jewelry box half an inch to the left. In the hallway, I flipped one of the photo frames upside down inside its mount. A small rotation, barely visible unless you were looking. In her bathroom drawer, I replaced her perfume bottle with an identical one missing a few sprays. And in the living room, I swapped out a single couch cushion for an old one from our storage closet, the one with a coffee stain she hated. She hadn't noticed it yet, but soon she would. That night, after we sat through another forgettable show and exchanged hollow pleasantries, I stood up to leave and casually said, "Feels different in here." She paused. "What do you mean?" I shrugged. "Like, I don't know. The house just feels a little off. Like someone's been messing with it." Her face paled slightly. Not enough to show panic, but enough to crack the mask. She forced a laugh. "Well, it's been a long month. Maybe I rearranged some stuff and forgot." "Maybe," I said, heading toward the door. "Or maybe the house is just trying to remember who actually lives here." She didn't respond. I opened the door, stepped halfway out, then turned back. "Oh, and Tess. Yeah. You might want to check the toothpaste cap in your bathroom. It's not the one you use." Her eyes widened just a bit. Barely, but it was there. Then I left, again, no slam. Just the quiet click of the door shutting behind me. Because now I wasn't just visiting her once a month. I was haunting her. By the seventh visit, she wasn't pretending anymore. The performance was cracking. No cozy candles. No fake smiles. No pretense of making the evening comfortable. This time, she opened the door halfway and stood with one arm against the frame, like she was debating whether or not to let me in. "You're here," she said flat. "Right on schedule," I replied, stepping past her. The house felt colder. Not in temperature, but in atmosphere. She hadn't cleaned. There were dishes in the sink, laundry half folded on the couch. This wasn't neglect. This was someone unraveling. You could see it in the details. The wine rack was empty. The hallway rug was crooked. The dining room chair, the one I always sat in, was missing. I didn't ask why. I already knew. She couldn't sit across from me anymore without hearing the creaks in her conscience. We didn't talk much. She scrolled on her phone. I let the silence stretch, settling in like fog. Every time she glanced up, I met her eyes without blinking, and she'd always look away first, like a child who'd drawn something inappropriate on the walls and hoped no one noticed. I made my usual walkthrough of the house around 8 p.m., nothing suspicious. No man's shoes. No jacket. No wine glasses doubled up. Either she'd gotten smarter or lonelier. I wasn't sure which made me feel worse. That's when I did it. While she was in the bathroom, I slipped into the guest bedroom, a room we never used. It had become storage for things we didn't want to throw away but didn't care enough to keep close. In the back of the closet was an old cardboard box of mementos. Stuff from college. Ticket stubs. A dried flower I gave her once at a rest stop in Tennessee. She said she loved how random it was. I bet she didn't remember the town's name. I placed an envelope at the bottom of that box. No name, no address. Just one printed photo. The one I had taken weeks ago of her breakfast table with the pancakes and the 2 orange juice glasses. I had printed it at a pharmacy in town, trimmed the edges neatly, and wrote nothing on the back. Just the image. Frozen. Undeniable. It wasn't to expose her. I wasn't mailing it to anyone. I just wanted it to be there, waiting, like a landmine in her memory. One day, maybe weeks or months from now, she'd be cleaning, moving out, trying to forget, and then she'd find it. That one photo. And for just a moment, it would all come back. The betrayal. The fact that I knew. The things I never said. When I returned to the living room, she was curled up in the armchair, chewing on her thumbnail, staring blankly at the paused TV screen. Some courtroom drama. Irony at its finest. "Do you want tea or something?" she mumbled. "No. I'm good." She nodded, but I could tell her mind wasn't there. It was racing, scanning, trying to identify what had changed. Because she could feel it. That something was different. Not the layout. Not the furniture. Something in the air. And then she finally broke. "Are you trying to scare me?" Her voice was quiet, but shaky. "Is that what this is? You sneak around. You show up and say nothing. And now I feel like I'm going crazy in my own house." I didn't respond. "I mean it, Gordon," she said louder. "If this is some kind of revenge thing, it's not funny. It's creepy." I turned slowly, met her eyes, and walked over to the couch. "If you feel like a stranger's living in your house," I said softly, "then maybe we're finally even." She stared at me, mouth slightly open. I stood up, walked to the door, but paused before opening it. "Oh, by the way," I said over my shoulder, "your guest bedroom closet's looking cluttered. You might want to do some spring cleaning." Then I left, and for the first time, I knew. She didn't know if she wanted me to come back next month or if she was terrified that I would. I didn't go the next month. She waited, I'm sure of it. Probably sat on the couch, phone in hand, lights dimmed like always. I imagined her glancing at the clock every 20 minutes, wondering if I'd finally given up or if I was playing some deeper game she hadn't learned the rules to yet. But there was no game anymore. I had already won the moment I stopped caring if she noticed. That month, I didn't haunt the house. I didn't move anything. I didn't sneak in when she was gone. I didn't send a text or leave a note. I simply did not show up, and that absence did more than my presence ever could. It wasn't about punishment. It was about release. Something had shifted in me after the last visit. Maybe it was watching her sit there, too afraid to check her closet. Maybe it was the way her voice cracked when she accused me of trying to scare her. Or maybe it was because, in that moment, I realized I wasn't scared anymore. I wasn't stuck. I didn't belong in that house, or in that story. I wasn't a ghost. I wasn't a victim. I was a man who'd outgrown the prison she built. 2 weeks after I skipped my scheduled visit, I mailed her my key in a padded envelope with no return address. Inside, I wrote one sentence on a plain white card. You can stop looking over your shoulder now. I'm not behind you. She never responded. And that was fine. I didn't need her to. Silence was no longer my weapon. It had become my peace. I moved out of my cousin's basement shortly after. Got a small studio near a park, somewhere with light and space and no shadows. I started painting again, something I hadn't done since college. I even took a part-time teaching gig at a community center. Not for money, just to remember what it felt like to give something without expecting anything back. One afternoon, after class, I stayed behind to clean up. A woman came in to ask about weekend workshops. She was funny, quick, and said she didn't know a damn thing about art, but wanted to learn how to paint flowers that didn't look like bruises. Her name was Margot. Not perfect, not polished, just real. We've been seeing each other. Slowly, carefully. She doesn't ask about my past. She knows I'll tell her if and when I'm ready. And for now, it's enough that she laughs at my dumb jokes and never hides her phone screen when I sit beside her. The other day, she asked me what I'd paint if I could only choose one image to capture for the rest of my life. I thought about pancakes, about silence, about the cold echo of a woman saying, just one night a month. Then I looked at her, sitting cross-legged on the floor of my tiny apartment, humming to herself while washing brushes. And I said this, right now, just this. And for the first time in a long time, I meant it.